Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Monday the 20th of February comes to you from Singapore. I'm delighted to be here, seeing clients for a few days, and I'm looking forward to running through the charts. So I'm back at my computer, and we'll just start by looking at the screen. The market's likely to be quite quiet today because it's President's Day in the US, a public holiday for markets there, and so that means markets in Asia and Europe are fairly subdued whilst we don't have that US open. So we start by looking at the dollar. The dollar did find support here on the dollar index at 100. So it's just a psychological, critical level on the cloud. We bounced on the weekly. Remembering this is my weekly, my daily, and my 60-minute charts, my long-term, medium-term, short-term view with the corresponding point and figure targets. So interestingly, we are seeing the dollar just finding some support. That 105 level, which was a previous support level, may well become a ceiling for the dollar. And there is a shortage of upside targets on the medium-term chart, although we do have some upside targets here on the short-term chart. So that's really someone to watch for what's going to happen next with the US dollar. Of course, markets all about interest rate expectations and inflation, really. So all eyes on the Fed and their next move some weeks away now. So looking at the euro hitting that resistance on the cloud on the long-term chart, but medium-term bullish, and again just short-term we're seeing some downward pressure there on the euro and a shortage of upside targets. So that move in the dollar may well be overdone. Looking at sterling, we're sitting at 20.50. So again, we just couldn't get through that 125 level. So sterling just looking a little bit weaker, hitting some resistance there on the long-term chart against the dollar. And if we look at sterling against the euro, we're sitting at 112.63, just a gentle decline here, gradual decline over the last year. And we're seeing that just that downward pressure continuing where the euro just has the slight upper hand. Bitcoin is actually looking quite strong again, up at $24,500. We've got a new upside target to $30,150. So that thrust has been activated, some 23% higher, just a shortage on the 1% chart, and we do have a downside target on the short term. So we may fall before we rise. This $25,000 mark is pretty clear resistance and psychologically important for Bitcoin. So that's certainly a level to watch. Without the US markets open today, we're seeing the FTSE future, the actual FTSE index is making new all-time highs above 8,000. So that's really significant. And we're just seeing, again, these upside targets, some 16% higher on the FTSE, so to 9,200, that's on the future. So really quite significant there. Notice how this 8,000 target that was given back in September 2021 has now been met. You just cannot ignore the targets. Looking at the DAX in Germany, we're seeing here little change. Again, that absence of the US market today, just keeping European markets quite quiet at the open. The DAX just wandering through. We do have a new upside target, some 16% higher here as well. So that's really significant. And we are just breaking back above the cloud on the long-term chart. So really quite interesting. Tokyo is up 1/3%. So again, just holding that bullish on all three time frames with the upside targets. And if we look at the Hang Seng, we are up 0.8%. Markets in Asia actually showing a fairly strong performance, and we saw in China the Shanghai Composite up 2%, so really moving quite a bit higher there as well with upside targets. So the market's really shaking off global woes as we speak. The Sensex was actually down 0.4%, it's just a little bit weaker, but still holding above the cloud. And again, these upside targets just can't be ignored. And if we look at the Aussie market, little change there in Oz. We're still bearish below the cloud on the short term, but bullish on the medium and longer term charts. We'll look at the energy mix in a minute, but let's take a look at gold first of all. 1845 is the level. Really just struggled to get back above this 1900 level. We are still holding the bullish medium-term chart, but we do have these downside targets in the short term hanging over us. So we have to pull back. This is the classic thing about time horizon. We're bearish in the short term, pulling back to these targets, but we will develop new upside targets as we get these moves off the pullback. So really one to watch, and we still do have this target of 2100 there. So that would be a new all-time high for gold. And of course, 2000 is a very important psychological level. Silver just struggling a bit below this $22 level, and it hasn't made the bullish cross on the weekly chart, but on the daily we are just holding. But again, this target of 2192 was met. That's bearish confirmation, and we do have quite a few downside targets here. Although we've got this new upside target of 465, 2286, which is 4.65% higher, and we are just crossing the cloud there. So a little bit of a conundrum going on. US 10-year yields have been creeping up. In fact, we're at 3.8%. So that's really quite interesting. We're just seeing that resurgence in the yield. We do have these downside targets still hanging over us, but the big upside target still to around 9%. Very hard to believe, but that's the long-term target for yields, and this will be a really key thing as whether inflation will run a lot. We won't bother looking at the US stocks today because the market's closed, but we will take a look at the energy mix. We've already put out our report to clients this morning for the market morning call for the day. Brent crude, we've seen this really significant move here, got this triangle pattern, and that's really quite significant. We're seeing this sort of break between the trends, and which way will we break? This is really one to watch here. So this triangle pattern becoming quite significant. We're going to get a break quite soon. Watch for a higher high or a lower low, and we are still below the cloud on the 60-minute chart. We've got 84 as a critical line of action here. That was support, now resistance, but we do have an upside target on the very short 1-minute chart. This is daily, 60-minute, daily, 60-minute, 1 minute. So we've got medium term, short term, very short term. If you're trading crude, you want to be watching these 1-minute charts. Looking at US nat gas, sitting at $2.22. So again, market's closed today, so not really one to watch, but we are just seeing here that US gas prices have really fallen all the way back. Big question is, can we go below $2? We don't have targets pointing to that at the moment, but watch for new ones emerging. Emissions in Europe, we're seeing here 96.40, that resistance level hit. That 90 euro mark is now really key to hold. That was resistance, now support, so watch for that. You can just draw that on the chart. It's really quite key. That's the level to just watch there. We've gone through that resistance now turning into support, and the key question is, will we break 100? We've got a long-term target much higher than 100, but for the moment on the 1-minute charts, if you're trading carbon, these are the ones to watch. Looking at gas prices, we're actually up 2% this morning. We did fall below 50 euros on the TTF contract front month, so that's really significant. We are still bearish below the cloud on the medium term and the short term. We've got mixed targets today. Watch for new targets kicking in there. And on NBP, we're just back above that 120 level. And again, that is a really critical support level now. That's the low that we've sort of got to watch. And notice how this target this morning to 123 was given at 121, met very, very quickly. So you can't ignore these 1-minute targets. You've got to watch those on your systems. Last of all, we take a look at power, and we look at the German power contract on EEX, and just requesting the data there and an update there. So we've got these targets to the downside. We put this out on our report this morning, so really quite critical that we hold this sort of 155 level. We do have downside targets, quite a lot of them, so still quite negative for power prices. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.